video, we will talk about norm referencing and criterion referencing. Now, these are two statistical terms which basically are used to derive the meaning of a score. Just imagine that I did, let's say, a skill assessment, and that skill assessment was about how fast people can write, and I gave them a score of 1 to 100. Now, let's say somebody got a score of 70. What does it mean? Does it mean that the person can write very fast or very slow or somewhere in between? Now, if I just tell you that this person has got a score of 70 on a writing test, that doesn't tell you anything about the person's ability to write. Now, in order to derive meaning from this score, you have two ways. One is that you have some objective criteria that people who get a score of 80 or 70 or 60, let's assume that your objective criteria is 60, that people who get a score of 60 means that they write roughly 60 words per minute, which is basically one word in 1 second. Now that's an objective criteria. So now if I tell you that I got a score of 70, you can say that okay, this person roughly writes 70 words per minute. So this is called criterion referencing, when you are associating the score for interpretation with some kind of objectively verifiable criteria or measure. Now, just imagine that I'm going to assess something on which there is no objective way of knowing it. For example, intelligence. Now, we can say what is high level of intelligence, what is low level of intelligence by looking at any behavior of the person, or by looking at the problem solving, let's say, method or problem solving ability of the person. So if you give, let's say, 20 different numerical tests, and then you calculate the score, you can say that those who got 18 are higher than those who got 13 in terms of numerical ability. But then we really don't know whether 18 is high as such or low. So the second way of comparing it, to compare it with the average of the group. So let's say that we take huge number of people, 500 people, and then we give them a test of general mental ability, in which we ask different kind of questions from different walk of life, which basically require different mental functions, different mental abilities like memory, recognition, verbal and all that. And then that would be an indicator of their general mental ability. Now, the one way in which we don't know that what is the lowest possible general mental ability, because it's something which cannot be defined in terms of maximum and minimum exact limit. In order to assign meaning to the score obtained by this kind of testing, what we do is that we compare it with the midpoint of the group. So then each score is compared from its midpoint, and the calculation starts by showing how far or how close the score is from the midpoint. So when you see an IQ score in any report, it's basically norm reference. What it means that if the score is 100, it means that the person has scored the average or exactly at the mean of the group. Means that the person has got a score which is equal to the average of the group. If the person has got score higher than the average, then that high or low is measured in the unit of standard deviation. So if a person has got, let's say, half a standard deviation higher than the average, or 1 standard deviation higher than the average, or 0.34 standard deviation higher than the average. So when you compare a person's score with the average of the group, and you measure the distance from that average in terms of standard deviations, this process is called norm referencing, and that group is called norm group. Now, in psychology and most psychological testing, most psychological measurements are only norm referenced because we do not have any way to know the objective minimum or maximum limit. So, for example, we don't know what is the minimum limit of intelligence. We don't know what is the minimum limit of extroversion. We don't know what is the minimum limit of conscientiousness. or any personality or any psychological factor for that matter, we can know that what is the minimum limit of knowledge, acquired knowledge, against a defined syllabus, that you don't know anything about that syllabus, so you have 0. If you know if you know all that should be known in that syllabus, that would be the maximum limit. So there, when there are university exams, for example, you can make them as criterion referenced, that okay, if you got 60%, it means that you have mastered 60% of the course curriculum, and therefore you can be passed to the next grade, next class. Or you can make them norm reference, that in comparison to your class, you are 2 standard deviation above the mean, so you are the bright ones. So for psychological assessment, mostly the scores are represented in form of norm referencing. Thank you.